Hi, everybody. I'm Ken Reed from North Sales. We're here. We have a special day here with this double-handed masterclass, we're calling it, with Armel Le Cléac'h and Clarisse Crémer. We're going to take a few minutes and let some more people pile in. We've had, as you can imagine, when you have a couple superstars along with you, we've had a really good turnout for this. And so we'll give everybody a few minutes to check in and make sure they're online. In the meantime, you know, for North Sales, this has obviously been kind of an interesting time. We've never done this webinar thing before. And just in the past 2 months, we've had, I believe we've had 62 webinars that we've produced since mid-March. And we've had over 17,000 people who have registered and watched these webinars. So it's been kind of overwhelming, but it's really been fun to see. It's been part education, part entertainment, just trying to keep people in that spirit, in that mood to get back out on the water again, and it's clearly working. So we thank everybody for being part of this whole thing. Just another bit of homework to let everybody know this is recorded. So it is on YouTube and on the North Sales YouTube channel. So anytime any of you would like to either rewatch or to watch any of the other of the 60 plus webinars that we've put together so far, please feel free, help yourself. Of course, they're all free and they really cover an incredibly wide range of subjects through the sport of sailing. So I think we'll wait another few seconds and then we'll jump in and we'll introduce our guests. Again, we thank you all. Some parts of the world in the evening. Here in Newport, Rhode Island, it's exactly 12 noon. It's kind of a dreary, looks like going to be a rainy day with no wind, so not a great sailing day. So good day maybe to be on a webinar instead. All right. Again, I'm Ken Reed from North Sales, and thank you for joining us. It's ironic that double-handed sailing has become such a big subject, because it wasn't too long ago that I jumped into double-handed sailing. I kind of dabbled in it over the winter a little bit, especially with the announcement of the Olympics in 2004, which is going to have a double-handed event. I just think it's kind of interesting. I think it's another type of sailing that I've never participated in up until just very recently. The fun part is, by no means, what I learned very quickly is, by no means am I an expert in double-handed sailing. So we decided to bring in a couple real full-fledged experts in double-handed sailing. And Armel and Clarisse, best known sailing together double-handed in this past year's Transat Jacques Vabre. They came in 6th place overall, which was, I think, thought to be phenomenal. And as they're very quick to point out, when we talked last week, they were in 1st place in the non-foiling class and 1st place in the mixed crew class. And we're just so lucky to have these two here today to talk about A, their experiences, and B, what it's like to put some of this double-handed sailing together, because this is not just for professionals. What we want to talk about is just getting back out on the water. I think that's what these webinars are for, is to try to convince people to get back out on the water. I've done a couple races this past week, and I haven't felt as safe, you know, healthy, safe in a long time as when I was back out on the water. And double-handed sailing is obviously a real way to get on the water and socially distance at the same time. So the whole thing lines up really well for us. So who are these superstars? First of all, I don't think I have to really introduce Armel, one of the offshore sailing superstars, not just in France, but around the world. It was so fun to follow him in the Vendée Globe, which he won. Let's see, just a quick one. 2016-17 Vendée Globe winner, two-time Figaro champion, runner-up in the 08 and 12 Vendée Globe. Actually, Armel, how many times have you sailed around the world?
3 times around the world, so 3 Vendée Globes. So each time it will be between 74 days for the last Vendée Globe, and the first it was 89 days. So it's a long way.
It's a long way. I always, when people ask me if why I never sailed single-handed, I just say I don't like myself that much. So you must actually enjoy your own company. So first of all, thank you, Armel, for being here. And I know you're working hard sailing Figaros right now, and your big team trimaran is being built and hopefully launched early next year. So again, thank you. Clarisse, obviously a new up and coming French star. First of all, when a major sponsor like Banque Populaire chooses you to be their skipper, you know you've done something right. Clarisse has done, let's see, besides this past year doing the Transat Jacques Fabre and coming in 6th with Armel, let's see, she's been a mini Fastnet, a winner in the mini class in the Fastnet. She was 2nd in the overall mini Transat series in 2017. Offshore French Youth Championship, she was 2nd in 2017. And then, of course, this past year, the Fastnet race, where these two were 3rd, and then on to the Transat Jacques Fabre. So clearly, the woman on the rise in the sailing world, and a fun person to be watching going into the future. So let's get right into it. We have a bunch of questions, and these hours run out pretty quickly. So Armel, we're into double-handed sailing, and we have double-handed sailing happening all over the world. But you started early. You started short-handed racing. You know, became huge in France. But how did you get into it? Why not more crude sailing? Why short-handed racing for you?
So for several years, the timetable for leisure has changed in France. People don't have as much time to sail every weekend. Before, it was easy to create a team for training or a race, but that has changed. Suddenly, amateur sailors have evolved into double-handed, and it works a lot. There is something for every taste. Race between boys, and also crossing of the Atlantic. Yeah. It works particularly well for people aged between 30 and 60 years. So it's a good interest in France for a few years. So for me, I was particularly interested at start with solo-handed. So, but we have some good race in France, like the Transat Jacques Vabre or the Transat AG2R between France to Saint-Barthélemy. So it's yes, I like this this type of race because it changed for the solo-handed. Yes.
Well, Clarisse, really almost the same question, but clearly, you know, you like to have fun, first of all, sailing, as proven by this video that our team dug up from the archives. But why single-handed or double-handed sailing for you? Why not crude sailing? Most of the world got into crude sailing early, like myself, and why this short-handed type racing?
Well, there are 2 reasons. I think the first one was really the adventure. The first race I really wanted to do was the Mini Transat, which is a single-handed transatlantic on 6.5 meters boats. And I really was longing for this adventure. So that was the first reason. And the second reason is that I wanted to learn as much as I could. And on crude boats, it was a bit harder to get to strategic roles. And I figured that if I was alone on my boat, I got to do everything and to take all the decisions. And that was the best way to learn.
Well, was it easy to sail with Armel when you guys started together? I mean, was this something that came naturally, or was this hard? What, you know, was this a tough transition?
It was both, because Armel is a very easy person to sail with because he's very patient, very calm, and he explains everything very well, and he's very confident on this kind of boat. So that was the easy part, and it was not that easy because I was sailing with the guy who knew, who was the best on this kind of boats, and I was a rookie. I had to learn everything on this kind of boats, so I had to try to be as good as I could, whereas I didn't know anything about this kind of boat. So that was quite hard. I had to try to keep up the pace, and it was a bit hard at first. I remember that the Fastnet race was a bit hard for me because I was a bit lost on this boat, but Armel made it as easy as he could.
And Armel, single-handed versus double-handed. Those of us who don't sail shorthanded very much, I mean, to be frank, I was always ignorant to the fact where I thought of it all being kind of one of the same, shorthanded sailing. But it's very different, isn't it? Single-handed and double-handed, completely different style race, or similar?
We often say that double is solo for two, but it's not really that. For me, the double is more than the reduced crew. We can talk, exchange, watch each other, sleep more serenely, learn with our teammates. So if you make 470, it's not the same as the laser. So it's a team effort, and roles have to be distributed. We can, for example, take care of the strategy and weather for one, take care of the speed and setting for the other. Mm-hmm. We manage to find a lot of things to do each, and we can decide to change in each race if you want. In addition, for the harbor maneuver and to fold the sail, it is easier.
Two sets of hands is better than one, but Clarisse, onto this boat and this style racing. Banque Populaire is obviously one of the biggest names in sailing and sponsors. How did you get chosen? How did this team come together? How did this all happen?
Well, at the end of 2018, they wanted to find someone to do the Vendée Globe with them. But not the same Vendée Globe as usual. They were not going to build a boat, and they were not going to do a Vendée Globe for winning. So it was a bit different than usually with the previous Vendée Globes with Armel. So they were looking for someone young. They wanted a woman. They were not definitive on this point, but it was a better option for them, and they wanted someone who they could help start a career too. So that's how I was chosen. I was a bit surprised myself, but it was quite an extraordinary opportunity. And then it was decided that Armel and I were going to compete together in the Transat Jacques Vabre, because it was kind of the best training I could have for the Vendée Globe. And Armel and I didn't know each other at that time, so it was a bit fun to be put together for the Transat Jacques Vabre. And so we started training only a few months before, and we met when we started training, more or less. So we didn't really choose each other, but it happened quite well in the end. So we were happy to find each other. Well, I was happy to find Armel, and Armel did what he could with me.
I'm not so sure about that. Well, you know, it's an amazing sponsor, first of all. So you should be very proud. Was there a whole interview process, or were you the chosen one from the beginning?
It was a bit, the project had to go quite fast, and Banque Populaire wanted to take a decision quite fast, because they were just on not even 2 years before the start of the Vendée Globe, so the campaign was very short. And they never made like an official statement saying they were looking for a skipper, so they just called me and we started talking to each other, and we chose, well, the team chose me, and then I said yes, but it was yeah, I was kind of the chosen one in a way. Yeah.
You've just made hundreds of thousands of sailors around the world very jealous with that story.
I'm sorry.
So Armel, when you go to when you start double-handed sailing comes in all shapes and sizes, and we're trying to make double-handed sailing really bigger around the world. So how do you choose your partner? And forget Clarisse for a moment, because you guys were kind of put together to form a team for a reason. But if you're just starting from scratch, how do you choose a teammate? Because it's hard. I think it's intimidating for people to try to figure this out on their own.
Yes, it's not simple to choose a good person, but as with a crew, it is important to choose your team member well. In soccer, it is not by taking the 11 best player in the world that you make the best team. So the same in double-handed. So we must first get along well and define the roles at the start. These responsibilities may change over time, but it's important to have rules on board, I think. What works well is to try in training to change roles, to realize what your teammate is doing. It's a good exercise. This is not really a rule to find the right agreement on a boat, but I believe that it is by sailing that you get to know people better. If you have to go double for long sailing, take the time before sailing together to be sure, because in my experience, I see at the end of transatlantic, a crew will be not speak at the end of the race.
Not speaking, two people not speaking to each other at the end of a race.
Yeah, it will be sad to see that. So it will be important to take the time to choose the good person. But when you have that, it's a real pleasure to be on the sea and to do some race or other thing with him or her.
So the physical and mental skill is just one part of it. It's actually the personality is almost equally as big a part of it. Is that right?
Yeah, for me, it's a very important thing.
Did you see that video of Clarisse jumping around on the foredeck of the boat before you guys were partnered? Did that make you nervous?
No. Before we start to sail with Clarisse, I don't know very well Clarisse, so we had just made the Solitaire du Figaro 1 month before the start of our training. So I just know that she will be participate at the mini transat, and she has a good result. But it will be very different that the things I will choose in the past. So normally I choose my partner because we know each other. But with Clarisse it was a choice with Banque Populaire. So, but it was a good choice because we arrived in in Bahia with smiles. So and we have a good result. So yes, it was yes a good experience.
Yeah, and I didn't jump on the IMOCA. I was listening to Armel and trying to do my best.
Coach, we'll call him Coach from now on. Well, but on that same line, you guys had to develop, and I think one of you dropped a little hint on this. You had to develop chemistry quickly. So let's start with Clarisse. Well, I'm guessing as your kind of your coach, Armel chose the roles to start, right? So if you look back on this, how did the roles change from the perceived roles when you began to what the roles actually were when you finished your adventure together?
Well, some roles just stayed the same. Like Armel was kind of making all the very strategic decisions. He was checking the weather and trying to choose our route, and that stayed the same all along the race. The difference is I was getting more and more experience on the boat, and I was able sometimes to say, well, Armel was sleeping, and at first, like during the fastnet, I was not able to wake up Armel and say, okay, I think we should take a reef, or I think we should change sails. I was not confident enough to say these kind of things, and at the end of the transat, I was way more able to do these kind of things and to wake up Armel in the middle of his nap and say, okay, now we have to change the sail. So these were evolved. It was easier for me to be part to take part in the decisions. Yeah, I think double-handed races are well to perform in double-handed races. You almost have to be two single-handed races. Both skippers need to know the boat pretty well, and so in this way the role can evolve. But the only way to discover this is to sail as much as you can before the race and to practice and to exercise.
So you look comfortable in front of the camera, by the way, on board these boats. I'm just saying, maybe Clarisse looks a little more comfortable than Armel does in front of the camera. I'm just saying, just hypothetically. Armel, similar question to you. After sailing together some, did Clarisse surprise you? Did she develop in some areas? You know, how do you see your roles? Did they stay pretty much the same from the beginning, or did they change quite a bit as you guys got to know each other better?
Yes, gradually I let Clarisse take care of the maneuver and the operation of the boat on the bridge. So my goal was that she could use the boat alone at the end of the jack bar, for the jack bar. It was very important because she came back with the boat alone after the race to come back from France. So during the preparation and the race, she asked me a lot of questions. And as she says, during the race, I was concentrated more on the weather, on the strategy, because I really like it. But Clarisse learns quickly. And at the end, I no longer check this setting. So I think the objective was good. So she complete the preparation. So I was so when the teams asked me at the end of the race, she was okay to come back to France with the boat. I say, okay, no problem. It's ready for her. So now she have a lot of training to prepare the Vendée Globe, but I'm sure she will be she arrives to to make this race, and I hope she finish the race.
Clarisse, I think that's the ultimate compliment when somebody doesn't check the settings. That is.
Well,
Sailor.
he checked sometimes, but he didn't always change them.
Okay, I get it. I totally know what you're saying. That's very funny. Well, that's very cool, you guys. Clarisse, I want to talk to you a little bit. I want to get off the double-handed subject for a second and talk to you a little bit about women in sailing. And I think I can accurately say role models like yourself are very important, especially to new young girls who are just coming up through sailing, and for I think women sailors in general, of which as a sport we have a long way to go with regards to bringing more women into the sport at competitive levels, at just sailing levels, from top to bottom. So first of all, just can you tell a little bit of your story? How did you start sailing as a young kid? Was it a family thing? Was it you on your own? How did you start, and how did this evolve?
Well, I started sailing when I was quite young because we used to go by the sea for vacations. But I lived in Paris, so I couldn't sail as much as I wanted. And I started races only when I was like 16 or 17. So I was not really a sailor when I was a kid. It was more of a hobby during holidays. And then I really discovered, I think, proper racing, and then very shortly afterwards, offshore racing in 2010 with the university, because in France there are a lot of university races, and sailing is a small world, so you get to discover professional sailors, and so you get to have a lot of opportunities, and if you say yes to as many as you can, you get to sail a lot. So that's how I started. But then I started to work, and I couldn't sail as much as I wanted. And it's really in 2015 that I decided that I was going to participate in the mini transat. And that's how I started to be almost fully committed to sailing. Well, that's how I started. And I've always loved sports, and I've always loved competition and the sea in general. And I was really driven towards the adventure of the mini transats, and that's how I discovered offshore sailing, and then that I wanted to do more.
So you said earlier that your kind of experience on crude boats, and you were almost not, you wanted to do more, and you weren't either put in a position to do more or something like that. And that's what kind of pushed you in the single-handed, double-handed direction. What would your advice for a young woman trying to break into sailing to get listened to more? What would your advice be now, looking back on it? Would you have done anything different?
I'm not sure. It's a very difficult question. It's true that sometimes I had the feeling it was hard to be in a position to be more useful on the boat, and not to feel like I was just a weight moving from one side to the other. That's part of the reason why I decided to do single-handed races, because I just wanted to be able to drive the boat, to take the tactical decisions. Even if I was wrong, that was a way to do it. So, so my advice would be sometimes, even if you might not see it like this, but I was a bit shy. I didn't dare to say, yes, I know how to do that, or yes, I know how to do this. And I think it's something you have to do if you want people to trust you, and people to choose you in different kind of positions on the boat. So you have maybe to be a bit more confident. Otherwise, only results and other experiences are going to allow you to be legitimate. And so be a bit more confident, maybe, is my advice, and try to to impose yourself to new positions on boats, on crew boats.
And you can be confident without being loud, right?
Yes, I hope so. Yes, I hope so.
Was there anything about this boat, this particular boat so far, that's surprised you, that's kind of given you a moment to pause and think, I'm not sure, I mean, I could not sail around the world by myself. I can guarantee you that. Has there been a moment where you said, I'm not so sure about this, or is your confidence, thanks to Armel's tutelage, is your confidence still on the rise?
These kind of moments happen to me all the time. I have doubts, and sometimes it's scary, and sometimes I just don't know how I'm going to handle things, and I think it's part of the way, it's part of the adventure, and you have to just accept it. But it's just at a level that is I'm okay with, and I'm growing my confidence day after day, and that's why I sail as much as I can, and I practice as much as I can, because the more I practice, the more my confidence grows, and this is the only answer to my doubts, and yeah, but I have doubts, and I am scared by quite a lot of things, but I still have the energy, and I still want to go, because that's the only thing that is important.
And I just saw the other day, or well, maybe it was today, that the Vendée Globe has said the race is going to happen, right?
Yes, because that's a good thing. We still are a bit nervous to see what will be the conditions in October, because as we've seen in the past, we can't really know what's going to happen, but it's a good sign.
Right, that's a great sign. So one other thing, when we were talking the other day, you mentioned something that you called positive discrimination. And can you explain that phrase? And I brought up a few photos of the Volvo Ocean Race as an example of what we were talking about, positive discrimination, where women were brought into the teams through rule changes, but at the same time gained obviously incredible amount of experience, and probably at one stage probably were put in the positions that they would have found maybe hard to get into just based on merit. Can you explain this, and what's your opinion of this going forward for women in athletics like sailing?
Well, I think it was a good thing to do, because thanks to those new rules, which were a bit weird at the time, like, okay, so 9 men are like worth 11 women. It's a bit weird to hear at first, but I think it was necessary to allow these women to get this first experience on Volvo Ocean Race boats, right. And now they are in the position in which they can be chosen not because they are women, but because they are sailors, and so I'm not always. I don't always agree with positive discrimination, but it can be it can just start a new trend, and sometimes it's a way of creating just a little start in something new, and I think it was a good thing to do. And the Olympic Games too, with these double-handed male and female crews are going to, I think, allow a lot of women too to maybe gain some experience and be chosen, and then after that they're going to be chosen not because they're women, but because they're sailors.
Let us pray that that's the direction we're going in. There's no reason not to, and that is the best segue I've ever seen. Thank you very much. I don't know if it was planned, but the Olympics and double-handed in the Olympics. And Armel, it's obviously been it's been announced in 2004 the Olympics is going to be a mixed or co-ed double-handed medal event, which is fantastic, very new, very progressive. First of all, how did the French community, the French sailing community, which has been so tied up in shorthanded sailing for a long time, how did the French sailing community respond to this announcement? Is it, I assume, very positively?
Yes, the French Sailing Federation worked a lot to have this event, the Olympic Games in 2024 in Paris. The ocean racing is much followed by the French and also by more and more other countries. So I think this is a great opportunity to have as many nations as possible try offshore racing. The mixed double format is ideal for this. So for me, it's a very important date to achieve this this event, because if we arrive, so we are sure that in the future we have more and more people that we do offshore racing. So so I hope for that.
So you know, France is different. France is different. This is established. This type of sailing is fully established. But if you look around the world, as we go around the world, there's other countries obviously trying to develop this, trying very, very hard to develop this. Can you give some, and obviously not in boats like this, in kind of more average boats, there's people who are trying to make their, you know, J121, great example of a boat that was really designed to try to attract double-handed sailing and attention in this. But what would you say to countries around the world? What is the real reason, according to Armel, what's the reason to keep pushing double-handed sailing? How can we build sailing outside of France the way that it has really, really grown inside of France?
As I said before, today sailing double-handed is quite simple. So two people can do a lot of things on all type of boat. Not too big anyway, but it costs less than having a crew, and it is less complicated in logistic. One of the real assets to develop this format is mixed navigation. So this opens up opportunities for race, navigation crews, and can interest new sponsors. So it's a great opportunity for a lot of nations. So so I think it's a way we need to take. So to start well and have fun, it's important to, if possible, to have a good autopilot, but this can help in case of problem and facilitate operation. But so I hope one day we will see big double race with a lot of nations, I'm sure. So I'm okay with you because France in history is a long way in offshore racing, but just to try to sail with two people. So you will see, you will discover a lot of good things, and I'm sure some people have difficulties to go just with two person on the boat, but it's not difficult, and you can have good opportunities to try, and so in France, as I say, a lot of people now have this have times to do some race or some training with just two people, because it's difficult to have a crew for the weekend, for the holidays, for 1 day. So
right.
it's,
Just try. What you just said is right. Just try. Just try
right.
it.
Yeah.
I agree. I kind of took that advice and I just tried it. I'm kind of hooked. So I don't think I'm quite to your level yet, but you look out. I'm coming after you for sure. So with that being said, Clarisse, are you going to go to are you going to try for the Olympics?
I have no idea. It's way too far for me. I have the Vendée Globe in the middle of the way, so I can't think about something else after.
Okay, that's a fair. Armel, what do you think? Olympics? You can announce. You can announce right here. I promise we won't tell anybody else. You can just keep. We can keep this between the two of us.
Why not? I'm sure that I will help the French nation to have a good result in 224, because for us it's very important to have a good result in France and for this meeting. But why not? Because I was in Rio for the last Olympic Games, and I see the middle race of the NACRA 17th, and
Yep.
And it was Mr. Lunch will have the gold medal. So it's not a young boy. So I have some hope to have perhaps one day a medal in Olympic Games.
I agree with you. We are all hanging on by a thread. Us old guys, I'm a little older than you are, I think, but we're all hanging on by a thread, hoping that the NACRA class is an example of what we can do. Listen, before we let you guys go, I have a couple good questions that have come in. So let me ask a couple of questions from the audience, if I could. Armel, you said earlier that you set rules on board. And I imagine you set rules on board early on, both for yourself when you're probably sailing by yourself. You probably have some strict rules, and you have rules for you and Clarisse. Can you give us a few examples of those rules?
Yes, I think the most important thing is the security and safety on board. So when you are two people, the first people you can help you if you have a problem is your crew, the other person. So it's very important to know where are the different things on board, and what's the decision to do if you have a problem for the two people. So and to define the rules on board. So if people is responsible of the weather or the strategy, you can discuss with him, but if you have a decision to take, it's important that this one is to decide, because if you note, I think for me, it's if you have not the rules, the rules on board, it will be complicated, and with when you are tired, if you have not the good feeling, it will be take a bad feeling on board, and the race, it will be a very long way.
That's a great reminder about safety, that's for sure. I have a question. Clarisse, another question here is, did you guys have any technical issues, any breakages worth talking about, any technical electronics, boat as such during your Transat Jacques Vabre? I mean, did you have, or was it a pretty smooth race?
It was a pretty smooth race. We have the best team in the world, so the boat is perfect and nothing breaks. We broke a few ropes. And that's it. Everything worked perfectly, and we just had one missed jibe that happened because of me after a few hours driving the boat in the middle of the night, and it was not the best experience in my life. And that was the only very big issue that we had to face during the Transat. So it was not that much, but it was still quite impressive to live.
And whenever young people ask me how to get into ocean racing, I'm constantly saying, you can't just be a sailor anymore. You have to be a sailmaker, a boat builder, an electrician, a rigger. Besides being a trimmer, a helmsperson, a navigator, and everything else. Is there part of that group? I assume you've trained in all of it: diesel mechanics, electronics, etc. Is there a part of it that you're more comfortable with, and a part of that group of skills necessary that you're maybe not quite so confident with?
The thing in which I'm the best is all like electronics and everything that happens with computers. That's the things in which I'm okay. I'm quite confident, and I'm not a very good I don't know much about mechanics. I'm not a boat builder, so I'm practicing as much as I can, and that's what I did in January and February and March before I was supposed to go back to sailing in March. That did not happen, but that was what I was going to. That is what I was preparing before going back to sailing, because I really need to learn a lot about that. And so I spent days with all the guys in the team, and I was kind of doing internships with all of them. And that's one of the things that I love the most, is learning so many things days after days, and to have all these people who are the best people you have in all these different jobs. It was just the perfect way to learn, and so I feel very privileged. But there is I still have a lot of things to learn in all these.
I assume you know this boat. You feel like you know this boat, every millimeter of this boat.
Not yet. I'm working hard on it, but not yet.
Armel, another question that always is asked is, as kind of somebody who obviously has gotten quite good at navigation, what kind of software do you use, and a little trick to navigation? There's several questions have come in. What kind of software do you use? What kind of weather data did you get during something like a Transat Jacques Vabre?
We use a lot of skippers in France, the soft Adrena. It's very complete soft for navigation and weather strategy. We have to take the weather forecast and the grids during the race. We have the soft is Squid. So I think some people know that this soft. So with these two soft, you can make a lot of things for weather strategy and routing. So, but after you have a lot of things, a lot of soft, but for me, it's just these two these two soft is efficient. Yeah.
Right. So I have to put my North Sales hat on for a second. I think Gautier Sargent has been designing your sails for a long time, and the sails on this boat. Is there anything in particular that Gautier and the people at North Sales France have done to keep you as a client for so many years? Is there something, well, if there's anything bad, you can keep that to yourself, but is there anything great about North Sales and Gautier especially, and the design group there that that you could mention?
Yes, we have a good relation with North France, with Gautier and his team. So they make my sails for the last two Vendée Globes. So for each boat for each skipper, you have a different approach to choose your sail for the Vendée Globe. So they are listened a lot at start, and I like the philosophy of the project, because we don't a few years ago, you make your boat, you build your boat, and after you put some sails. So it was two different things, and we try to have the best solution. But now with North, we change, and they arrive at the start of the before we build the boat. So when you are just think of the new boat, they are on the start of the decision and discussion, and the sails are one of the first things you have on the table to write the boat and the line of the boat. Yes.
Clarisse, I assume you're sticking with these guys, with North Sales France through this race.
Yes.
Have they taught you how to glue on or repair with 3DI yet? Have they taught you that? Not that you ever.
No, I still have to do this internship, but I'm not planning to break my sails. They are going to be fine all along the Vendée Globes. That's what I'm planning on.
God bless you. That's the right answer. Listen, you guys, we're coming short on time. First of all, Clarisse, really good luck with your preparations in the Vendée Globe.
Thank you.
We're all rooting for you very hard. You're non-foiling. You're going to stick with the boat as it is right now, and when all these crazy foils combing their way through the ocean start hitting stuff, you never know. It's going to be interesting to watch. That's really one of the problems, isn't it, with the race now, is it's a bit of Russian roulette when it comes to stuff in the ocean to hit. So anyway, just be safe. We can't wait to follow you. We're all rooting for you very much. And Armel, as always, you're a class act. You're great for the sport of sailing. We're proud to have you as one of our spokespeople, no question about it, and all the success you've had. Same thing, getting back into single-handed in the Figaro. Really good luck, and be safe, and stay on the boat. And when you get that trimaran back together again, you got to take me for a ride. That's all we ask during this whole thing. That's the only thing that you have to do. That you have. Could you promise that, please, in front of the entire world?
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for my difficulties in English, so I'm not a good speaker in English. So I will work for the future, because I think we have some race with different people of different countries on the same boat. So I need to learn English to be on the boat.
Yeah, well, your English. My mother always used to tell me that I should have been very good at French because I took 4 years of French when I was in grade school, but it was all 4 years of French 1, and I never really got through that. So believe me, your English is a lot better than my French. So
Thank you.
well, to both of you, again, thank you for being here. And listen, a special thanks to the North Sales marketing group. They have put on so many of these things. We've had success with these webinars since mid-March. Like I said before, over 17,000 people have registered and watched these, which is pretty overwhelming, but it's really fun to see. Clearly, it's a reminder that we all want to get back on the water. And this is kind of a step to get back on the water, both through education and through just pure entertainment and listening to two great people like this. It's no substitute for the real thing, though. And sailors are starting to get back out on the water. I participated in 2 local races this past week. And you know what, for you race organizers around the world, frankly, I haven't felt as safe as I was on the water from a health standpoint. It's obviously wide open, and I think as far as health and safety is concerned, there's no better place than to be out in the middle of the bay or the ocean here right now. So I'm not saying that local regulations should be ignored, of course not, all the way around the world. And to the contrary, I'm just suggesting that it's a really safe place to be. So no social functions at events, it's all right with me. It really is a reminder of why we go sailing again. So lining up events and allowing events to safely happen is so critical for our sport going forward. So from all of us at North Sails, again, I thank you for being here. I'm Ken Reed. Be safe, be smart. We'll hopefully see you all out on the water soon. And thanks very much for being here.